Can you guys hear that? That's the sound of everybody here playing at the park. I'm on my trip in Chicago, Illinois, and I came to the park because I wanted to read you guys a story. Now, I can't read you guys the story when you guys go to bed, so I thought I would read the story here in the park when I can, record it, and then you guys can play it before bedtime. But while I'm reading the story, you might hear children playing, people shouting because they're playing soccer, or kids just goofing around by the park. Nevertheless, I hope you guys enjoy the story, and if you guys close your eyes, you can imagine that you're in the park with me, and I think that'd be a lot of fun. So tonight I'm going to read the introduction. Here we go. The word myth in Greek means a story, and the first myths were simply that, stories primitive man made up to explain what was happening around him in the world of nature. These forces were imagined as gods with special powers. Zeus controlling the thunder, Apollo the sun, Poseidon the sea, and the change of season from summer to winter, for example, was explained by Demeter going into mourning for her daughter Persephone, who had descended into the underworld for half of each year. To explain such things as why the spider spins, they invented the story of the proud and unfortunate maiden Arachne. From her name we get our specific word for spider, arachnid. Later, the myths and legends of great heroes that may have had some basis in history were woven into tales of action and adventure, like the one about Perseus and the Gorgon head. Because the ancient Greeks had such a wonderfully rich imagination and a great love of beauty, their stories have always been most admired and widely known of all European myths. They can be enjoyed solely for their charm, grace, and direct action, but you might also read them as a helpful background for innumerable allusions and symbols that you are bound to meet in art and literature. Much of the classical and Renaissance art and masterpieces of literature cannot be understood without some knowledge of Greek gods and heroes. In these stories, the original Greek names are given first, and the Roman names in parentheses. So tonight we bring you the story of Arachne. In Lydia lived a maiden named Arachne, who had become so skillful in the art of weaving that the nymphs themselves would leave their play in the woodlands and waters to come admire at her work. Her work was so beautiful, not only when finished, but also to watch in the doing, as the nymphs surrounded her loom, watched her fingering the crude wool, then carding it skillfully till it looked as light and as soft as a cloud, or twirling the spindle with unbelievable speed and dexterity. They could not help saying, "Surely Athena herself must have taught you." But Arachne denied this. She was so proud that she could not bear to be thought of as a pupil, even of Athena, who was the goddess of wisdom and all of the household arts. "Let Athena try her skill with mine," she boasted. "If she beats me, I will pay the penalty." And Athena is also known as Minerva in Roman cultures. When Athena heard this, she was very displeased. Assuming the form of an old woman, she came to Arachne and gave her some friendly words of warning. "Maiden," she said, "I've had much experience in these matters, and I can give you some good advice. Challenge any mortal you wish, but never compete with a goddess. On the contrary, I advise you to ask Athena's forgiveness for your wild boast. As she is merciful, she will perhaps pardon you." Arachne stopped her spinning and looked at the old woman with anger. "Keep your advice," said she, "for your own daughters or handmaidens. For my part, I know what I am talking about, and I stand by it. I am not afraid of the goddess. Let her try her skill with mine, if she dares." "She comes," said Athena, and dropping her disguise, she stood and revealed her tall, majestic form as the goddess with the golden helmet. The nymphs bent low in homage, and all the bystanders shrank back in fear and reverence. Arachne alone stood unbowed, though a sudden blush reddened her cheek, and then she grew pale. She would not back down, however, on her foolish resolve to compete with Athena. The contest began. Each took their place and attached the web to the beam, then passed the slender shuttle in and out among the threads. Mortal and goddess worked with great speed, their skillful hands moving swiftly in the excitement of the public competition. Athena used wools of many contrasting colors, which shaded off into one another so subtly that the joining deceived the eye. It was like some marvelous rainbow formed by sunbeams, reflected from the shower, and where when the colors meet they seemed as one, but at a little distance from the point of contact they are wholly different. In the central circle of her web she wove the story of her contest with Poseidon, also known as Neptune, the god of the sea, for the possession of Athens. The first king of that city had promised to dedicate it to the one who produced the most useful gift to the mortals. Poseidon gave the horse, but Athena gave the olive, which was judged more useful, and the city was named Athens in her honor. In the four corners of her web, Athena wove incidents showing how mortals had dared to compete with the gods and had been punished. These were meant to be the final warning to her rival to give up the contest before it was too late. Arachne filled her web with stories chosen to belittle the gods. She made light even of the great Zeus, or Jupiter in Roman culture, portraying him in his animal disguises, first a bull and then as a swan. Then subjects she chose were plainly disrespectful, yet they were woven so miraculously and so close to nature that even the bull, for instance, seemed like a living, breathing animal. Even Athena herself had stopped for a moment to admire the handiwork. But the goddess could not withhold her wrath at the girl's insolence. With her shuttle, she struck at the web and tore it into pieces. Then she touched the forehead of Arachne 3 times. "Live on," she said, "and since you were so vainglorious about your weaving, you shall continue to weave forever." Then Athena sprinkled some poisonous plant juice on the maiden, and immediately her hair came off. Her face disappeared, and her body shrank up and changed into that of a spider. To this day, you see Arachne's descendants still weaving. This story is based on the Age of Fable by Thomas Bulfinch. Thank you, Helen and Reed, and Diane, for playing this for the children. I love you and miss you guys so very much, and I hope you guys enjoyed the story. I will be back home very soon, and I can't wait to see you. Good night.